Good evening and welcome to In Depth. In tonight's program, our guest is the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Aviation in the federal government of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Deputy Premier, Minister of Tourism, Health, Culture and Community Affairs in the Nevis administration. He's an attorney at law by profession, and he has taken a sabbatical from this firm, Daniel Brantley and Associates. When we come back, we'll talk to him about what is his intention, how he plans to run this government. Stay tuned, don't go away.
You rely on your car to take you both near and far. So when it's time for service, take it to General Auto Repair, a prestige car service for less. Located at 26 Well Road, Colby, a service center with the right knowledge, staff, and equipment to handle all jobs, from general servicing to radiator work and auto body repairs, even tire installation, repair, and sales. So come on down to General Auto Repair, the prestige car service for less.
At SXM, we're taking travel and tourism to new heights. Here we boast spacious check-in areas, 10 passport control points, comfortable departure lounges, and an exciting new airport mall. Finally, there's an airport in the Caribbean that takes your travel plans as seriously as you do. Princess Juliana International Airport.
At Nagico, the things that matter to you matter to us. Like knowing you're covered when your house gets flooded, getting your settlements quickly and fairly when a fire hits your home, and making sure your business can keep going even after an accident happens on site. At Nagico, we're about much more than just insurance. We're about the big things and the small things that mean everything.
And welcome back. Minister, welcome to In Depth.
Thank you very much for having me.
First, let me congratulate you on your victory at the polls. I think it was a resounding victory where the people spoke that they wanted a change in government.
Yes.
How do you plan to run this? What is your priority?
Well, we have many priorities. I think that, of course, those who follow elections here and follow the politics in St. Kitts and Nevis would understand that we had a regime that was in place for 20 years. It was, I believe, by Caribbean standards, one of the longest runs that we've seen. And of course, after 20 years of what we say, leading the country down a particular path, one would understand that we have a tremendous amount of work to do. And so the priorities are many, the work is plentiful, the hands, thankfully, I think with the overwhelming support of the people, potentially many as well, to get that work done. But for me in foreign affairs, most specifically, I think that my priority is to help to repair relations with many friendly neighbors. We have had some difficulties insofar as our neighbors are concerned, powers that exist in this region and in this hemisphere that have traditionally been our allies, but over the past few years have expressed concern about certain events and developments here under the previous government. As a consequence of that, we saw, for example, Canada imposing visa requirements on our citizens, which is unprecedented. We've always enjoyed visa-free access to Canada. And so it is my task now to repair those relationships and to in my view, repair the image of St. Kitts and Nevis, regionally and internationally, to interact with partners and to assure allies that we are responsive and responsible, and that they have a government in Bastia that they can trust, but also to form new relationships and develop new friendships around the world. And so our foreign affairs approach will be one which is expansionist in its outlook. We want to expand the footprint, the diplomatic footprint of St. Kitts and Nevis, and cement and grow closer ties with our friends and find new friends in this ever-changing global environment. And that's a very clear mandate that we've got, and the Prime Minister has been very clear to me that he wants me to go out into the world and to develop those relationships. And so a reparation, if you will, of our image is important. A sense of restoring the traditional pride and dignity that we have enjoyed. We have had issues, to be sure. We have an issue with our citizenship and our citizenship by investment program, which has come under increased scrutiny and increased attack, in part because of some reckless actions taken previously. We now have to restore that, we have to fix that, we have to do a top-to-bottom review of that program so that we can assure our friends again internationally that our program poses no risks to them but is a legitimate program. Indeed, as many of them have similar programs, that is and will be a main priority as well for us. Crime and security, major priority, not necessarily for my portfolio, but certainly for the country, and we continue to work assiduously. We have only been in office now for 6 weeks at the federal level, and so many people are clamoring and saying, well, you know, why haven't you solved these problems? Why haven't you done this and done that? When you compare 6 weeks, on the one hand, 20 years on the other, exactly, you would understand it might take a bit more than 6 weeks. I think even if, you know, if I can be allowed to be a bit blasphemous, even if Jesus came down, he might have a bit of a problem fixing 20 years of problems in 6 weeks. So we're doing what we can, and I believe that we're making some progress.
How do you plan to repair the damage done in the Citizen for Investment program? How do you plan to do that? Because from what I understand is that it will be a Herculean task to get Canada to change their minds.
Well, I don't know if it will be Herculean. It will be a task, to be sure. But how do we plan to do it? We plan to do it by engaging, by being responsive, and by assuring our partners that we are serious. The difficulty that we had with the previous administration is that the Canadians, for example, gave repeated warnings, which were ignored. They gave repeated indication that they weren't happy with certain things, and they were ignored. You cannot do that to your friends. You have to be responsive, and you have to recognize that actions taken in Bastia can impact Ottawa. And if you realize that, you then have the necessary discussions and the necessary level of dialogue and transparency and responsiveness that your friends in Ottawa will say, listen, here's a government we can do business with. And I think that's part of the problem. So it starts by restoring trust and confidence. I think we have already started that engagement process, and we hope that that will continue. We've very early on met with the United States ambassador to Barbados and Eastern Caribbean. We have had some good discussions there, which we will continue. We hope to go to Washington, D.C. very soon to meet there. We hope to go to Ottawa very soon. In fact, our country is on the cusp of opening its first ever embassy in Ottawa, which will be a full-fledged embassy, fully staffed embassy. And we feel that that is demonstrative of the seriousness with which we take a relationship with Canada. And it will allow us a platform to engage the Canadian administration in a meaningful way. The truth is that many countries have citizenship by investment programs or some variation of it. Even Canada attracted many wealthy Chinese from Hong Kong, of course, because they offered a program there. And so if you went to places like British Columbia, Vancouver to be more specific, you find that there are a lot of Hong Kong Chinese who migrated there. It wasn't by accident. This was deliberate policy by the Canadian government. So too we say we are entitled to frame our foreign policy for the benefit of our people. But we recognize and acknowledge that we cannot frame a foreign policy in such a way as to cause unease, difficulty, or harm to any of our neighbors. And so we need now to recalibrate our relationships. Look at our program, see how we can fix the deficiencies, consult with the Canadians, the Americans, the British, the EU, ensure that we are operating with best standards. And we feel that once we have open dialogue, and they do feel and understand that we are a new government with a new approach, and a government that is responsive and trustworthy, that we can repair that relationship. So it will be difficult, to be sure, but I think it is achievable. And that is what we intend to do.
When we come back, we'll continue this discussion. Stay tuned. Don't go away.
Bob, I can understand why you're parking so carefully. Of course, when you can get 80% discount on your Be Sure car insurance. But that's overdoing it, Bob.
Are you be sure? Be sure.
Yeah, 80%.
Winair, your dependable local airline, continues to serve the communities of St. Martin, Sable, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts, Nevis, St. Bart's, Tortola, Guadeloupe, Dominica with safe and dependable air transportation. Our friendly and courteous staff are always willing to assist you with your travel arrangements, be it at our main office on the Airport Road, which is open from Monday through Saturday, or at our counter at the Princess Juliana International Airport, or you can book online at www.fly-winair.com and choose Winair as your carrier. We offer dependable and reliable charter and cargo services. Winair, the national flag carrier of St. Martin with a 100% safety track record. Winair, we take you there safely.
At Nagico, the things that matter to you matter to us. Like your boat when you're at sea and you get away from everything. Your home and the security of your daughter's things. And the car that you've had for too long, but after all these years, you just can't let go. At Nagico, we're about much more than just insurance. We're about the big things and the small things that mean everything.
And welcome back. So we talk about the opening a new embassy in Ottawa. I understand there's an embassy in Vancouver that St. Kitts has. That is one of the prettiest places in Canada that you could have. Do you intend to keep that gentleman there, or are you going to buy the property?
Well, let's clear up some misconceptions, first of all. What has been bandied about, I think, as one of the most expensive embassies in the world, is not in reality an embassy. It is not the property of St. Kitts and Nevis. It is this gentleman's private home. Mm-hmm. And he has acted as the honorary consul for St. Kitts and Nevis in that particular area, I think in British Columbia. And so I think what happened was people sort of grabbed a photograph of his home and sought to suggest that somehow this was the embassy of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have had an honorary consul who was based in Toronto, and we had one who was in British Columbia. Of course, with the establishment of a full-fledged embassy, then there's no need anymore for the honorary consuls, unless we think that it's necessary in some remoter areas that we have our people need consular services, and therefore we will consider that at that point. But the intention now would be to centralize our foreign affairs activities at an embassy to be established in Ottawa, and if all goes well, we would hope that that will be set up by May of this year.
Fantastic. So you already have the people in place to have this done?
Yes.
Is there any plans by your government to change anything that was implemented except for this Citizen by Investment project that Dr. Denzel Douglas, the former Prime Minister, had? Is there any other plans you have to change anything?
Well, we've already demonstrated that. Just 2 days ago, we removed the VAT, value-added tax on food. We removed it on medical supplies. We removed it on school supplies. We removed it on funeral expenses. We had campaigned that the introduction of VAT was creating hardship for our people. That whilst we understood the economic morass in which we found ourselves, that in fact that morass had been created by the man himself. And we felt that sometimes, you know, he that infected you might not be the best person to cure you. And so the VAT was introduced as a potential cure, for our economic ills. And it has achieved, yes, some purpose, but we continue to be concerned. VAT by its nature is regressive, obviously, in the sense that the man who's making a lot of money and the man who's making no money pays the same VAT when he or she goes to the supermarket. Now, everybody has to eat. And we felt particularly concerned that when we looked throughout our constituencies and our communities, we saw single mothers, we saw people who were unemployed, and were really being forced further and further below the poverty line because of VAT on certain necessities. And so we thought, and we campaigned on it, that the imposition of VAT on food items, the imposition of VAT on medicine, the imposition of VAT on school supplies, that was particularly heartless in our view. And so when you talk about a change in direction, we've already demonstrated 6 weeks in that we have removed VAT. Well, we have announced that come the 7th of April, VAT will be removed from all food items, VAT will be removed from medical supplies, educational supplies, and removed from funeral expenses. You know, there's a big thing here in the campaign. We say even after you die, you're still being taxed. You know, and clearly people who in that state of mourning and wanting to put their loved ones to rest were faced with a 17% add-on in terms of those costs. So we felt that we could do this for our people, and we have demonstrated that. Interestingly enough, I saw just yesterday a response from the head of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce here, and they are very, very happy about this removal, and they're indicating that in their view it will lead to more consumption, a greater turnover, and so for them they see it not as a bad thing, but in fact as a good thing insofar as stimulating economic activity. And so that is one tangible thing that I can speak to immediately where we have differences in approach. I think, however, insofar as differences to the previous administration, one of the main areas, maybe intangible, but for us important, is the whole ethos of government. How does it function? How does it work? What approach is adopted in terms of your governance style? So we felt the country had become far too polarized, far too divisive. This style was akin to a dictatorial style of governance. You know, the previous prime minister was a sort of a little man, but who perceived himself as a strong man, a big man, so to speak. And he walked into the room and he sucked up all the air in the room. You know, that was his style. Our approach is a consultative approach. We have said that we think government should be servants of the people. You know, the previous leader described himself as the maximum leader. We have said the country now doesn't need maximum leaders, we need maximum servants. And so our approach is different. We are taking it from a different angle. We are saying to our people that we ought to be more consultative, we ought to listen more, and we ought to be more responsive to the needs of the people. And this move, which I think is a huge initial policy shift in relation to VAT on food, medicine and the like, I think that that is demonstrative of our effort to listen to the people and to react and respond in ways that are beneficial to them. You remove VAT from food, every man, woman and child in this country benefits from that type of policy initiative. And so that is what we intend to do.
When we come back, we'll continue this discussion. Stay tuned, don't go away.
At Nagico, the things that matter to you matter to us. Like knowing you're covered when your house gets flooded, getting your settlements quickly and fairly when a fire hits your home, and making sure your business can keep going even after an accident happens on site. At Nagico, we're about much more than just insurance. We're about the big things and the small things that mean everything.
We're not just another Caribbean airport. We're an international gateway.
Designed with you, the traveler, in mind.
SXM provides a state-of-the-art international travel experience where ease and convenience is second only to safety and efficiency. At SXM, we're taking travel and tourism to new heights. Here we boast spacious check-in areas, 10 passport control points, comfortable departure lounges, and an exciting new airport mall. Finally, there's an airport in the Caribbean that takes your travel plans as seriously as you do. Princess Juliana International Airport.
It's a wireless system. Cable WTN. Go digital WTN. With local TV on Channel 10. Call and make a date. 542-5898. Down by overseas building, Ruby and staff waiting. 48 channel, fasting with plenty more coming. News and sports from all over. Novella, Creole and Patois. Local thing is priority soon. Pavement and Taki-Taki. TV Carib on Channel 10. We'll always be your friend. Check out the scene, we have the best rate. 542-5898. Hey man, look, babies jumping up in the crib. Listening and watching TV Carib. What? You're making joke.
Hurry up, man. Move. Get off the road, man. Come on.
Ahora avanza.
Move it.
Y entonces.
Let's go.
Y entonces.
Get off the road.
What's happening? What happening, man?
At Nagico, the things that matter to you matter to us. Like your boat when you're at sea and you get away from everything. Your home and the security of your daughter's things. And the car that you've had for too long, but after all these years, you just can't let go. At Nagico, we're about much more than just insurance. We're about the big things and the small things that mean everything.
And welcome back, and if you've just joined us, you're watching In Depth, and my guest is the Deputy Premier of Nevis, Mr. Mark Brantley. Prior to going to the break, sir, we talked about the problem about the VAT. It has been said that the island Nevis needs a larger population actually to really have this viable. But what I want to talk to you about is, now that you don't have the VAT, what are you going to do to fill the government coffers? How do you manage that?
Well, let me be clear. It is not that we don't any longer have VAT. We continue to have VAT. We have just removed VAT from certain items, categories of items. So for example, there's no VAT anymore on food, there's no VAT on funeral expenses, there's no VAT on medical supplies, educational supplies. But we continue to pay VAT on furniture, on cars, on stoves and fridges, and on services as well. And so you would pay VAT at the hotels, etc. And so VAT continues to be a tax that is there, and a tax that is serving its purpose in raising revenue for the government, clearly to carry out its multiple functions. And so what we've done is to look and target relief at certain specific areas. Notwithstanding, the question is a very legitimate question, because obviously a removal of any tax means that a vacuum is created, exactly. A shortfall is created. Our policy, however, and departure from what hitherto existed, is that we feel that the way to benefit our people is not to increase taxes, but to grow the economy. And so what we need to do, and what we've set about doing, is to create economic expansion to a degree and to an extent that it offsets any immediate reduction that we may see in the removal of a particular tax from a particular range of items. And so yes, we expect the government to have a lowering of revenue as a result of the removal of VAT on food, which is of course a bold step to take. But we expect that that will be balanced by what we're seeing in terms of economic growth. In Nevis, for example, we have perhaps actually four significant hotel type projects which are due to start very shortly. The activity that will generate in terms of building materials, in terms of construction labor, in terms of heavy equipment rental, cement, and all the various things that go in. And then when that is over, the management and upkeep of those premises, we feel that's exactly what we need to be doing. Grow our economy, create jobs, and that way we feel that will balance out any shortfall in the immediate term that we may see from VAT. If also we are able to repair the image of the country, we are able to repair the difficulties that we've experienced with our citizenship by investment program. We also see that program as having almost limitless potential to go out into the world and to say to them, here's a legitimate, well-run, well-regulated, transparent program that can augment what we're seeking to do here. And so we look to different aspects of our economy in order to grow ourselves, if you will, out of any potential difficulty that we may get from a shortfall in taxation revenue. And so our answer is not to tax and tax and tax, because the old policy was to tax and spend. Our policy is to seek to grow the economy and to incentivize the private sector to do what the private sector does. In most countries, it is the private sector that drives economic growth, not the government. The government merely provides the necessary policies and the regulatory framework to allow the private sector to proceed. So our own policy is really the government should get out of the way, create the policies, create the environment, and move out of the way and allow the private sector to grow the economy. And so we expect to grow ourselves out of difficulty. And that is the intention, and that is the approach that this new government is taking.
We understand also that the population of Nevis is not large enough to really grow the economy. How do you plan to do this?
The world is shrinking, and barriers and artificial barriers are collapsing. Our people are interacting now. I mean, you can get on your laptop here now and order a car in Japan, and it arrives in 12 weeks. You know, people are interacting at a level and at a rate that was hitherto unimaginable. And so we have to keep abreast of that, and we have to be cognizant of that, and we have to work with that reality. So maybe it's not such a question of the size. I think size now is not so relevant. I think what we need to do is to leverage our potential, harness our resources. We have an incredible pool of talent in Nevis. People who are articulate, people who are bright, energetic, and have a host of ideas. We need to leverage that and put that to work for the country. And so I feel that our population will grow. It will grow naturally. It will also grow from immigration. And I think over time we'll see where that goes. But our policy is certainly one of inclusion as we seek to create the economic environment for business to flourish.
Thank you. And that's In Depth for tonight. Please join me again next week as we take an in-depth look at another issue. Do have a pleasant night.